I am giving you a warning. Yeah. A new day is dawning. You need to put up your hand and big up Jesus. I am giving you a warning. Holy Ghost, I love you. Jesus Christ is in the air. You love him tonight, give him praise. The mighty man I call. Saint Elizabeth call. Wobby. Come on, somebody put up your hand and big up Jesus. I where so much people come from, and then I go on. Somebody give him praise. I am giving you a warning. All over this place, all over this place. A new day is starting. Give him praise tonight. I am giving you a warning. Put up your hand and big up Jesus. Jesus Christ is in the air. The mighty man I call. I am giving you a heart. Big up Jesus, big up Jesus, big up Jesus, big up Jesus, big up Jesus. And you tell me, I am giving you a heart. I know you hear your Saint Elizabeth. I want to hear you. Jesus Christ is in the air. Telling us, say, them I got kill or no. Them soon I live every day. And them can't kill or no. You know why them can't kill or no? Saint Elizabeth, tell them. God is my king. Big up Jesus, big up Jesus, big up Jesus, big up Jesus, big up. Jah is my light and my salvation. Who shall I? Jah is the strength of Kukudu life. So who shall I be? Hey. Put up on and tell them, God is my king. You want to warn some people? We are going to tell them what goes around. Come back around. What goes up? Say warn them kukudu. If you live in a glass hole. Big up Jesus, big up Jesus, big up Jesus, big up Jesus. If you live in a glass house, we have something, we have something, we have something, we have something, we have something. If you can't take blow, don't jump. What you know? Some people now go and sing the song, yeah. But everything that is not of God tonight, we are condemning it in the name of Jesus. We're ready? Hold your work. Oh Jesus, you fast asleep. Oh Jesus, I love you. Rise and tribute. There's a message on you. Can I see how we have never said, hold your work. Are you fast asleep? Rise and tribute. There's a message Lord, yeah. Can I sing one more part of this song? Tell them. Took your lamb, but you carried over. Took up your lamb, but you carried over. You took up your lamb, but you carried over. You took up your lamb, but you carried over. Bridegroom come, and you shut up and took up your lamb, but you carried over. Put it up, one me right hand, Jesus. One me right hand. Oh, Saint Elizabeth, let me see you wave the right hand. One me hand, Jesus, one me. Oh Lord, I beg you. Yes, so me man, and I yes so. Oh Lord, beg you. Bitter water, some of them are. Oh Lord, them are. Hope you work hard, them are. Oh Lord, them are. Put up your hand and tell him. One me right hand, Jesus one. Oh Lord, no weapon formed against you, put it up. One me right hand, Jesus one. Oh. Gonna make be nice to Jesus. Come on, Balaclava, make be.
And good night to Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. Once again, it is time for Talking Points. My name is Sheldon Scott. I'll be here with you up until the 10 o'clock hour. Let's say a special good night to our listeners via 91.9, 91.5 Real FM. Yes, they're joining us tonight. Also, We Noise Radio out there in Brooklyn. Good night to you, Wade and Lady Fran, the entire squad. Good night to each and every one of you. Those of you on the YouTube, let's see who's joining us on the YouTube. I see Sandra Joseph there. I see Debbie Seals, Agnes Henry, Ashma Charles, Alban Harris. Good night, bro. Francis George, Phyllis Mitchell, Vanessa Lalji, Kathleen Ledlow, John Stafford. Good night. Deborah Laborde, Joanna George, Janice Mitchell, Teresa Joseph, Dolores Redhead. Good night to you. And hey, Carib Spice Fitness. Good night. Public Notice, good night to you. Anne-Marie Celestine Grant, good night. Baby Daddy, Adrian Watts, good night to you and Mrs. Watts. Good life, good night to you. Sherma Jeremiah, Marilyn Panchu, let me see, who else is there? Marilyn Ferguson, Jada Benjamin, Clive Raymond, Patsy Frank, Dale Francis, Vaughn Wellington, Velma Pascal, Kathleen Knights, Christine Otley, good night to you, my dear. Bernadette Joseph, Eliza Bernard, Rosalind Jones, Anna Lewis, Denise Fabio, good night to you. Michelle Alexander, Gemma Warwood, Miriam, good night to you, Miriam Samuel. And let me see, Gloria Francois, I see you there. Gleason Clovey, Miss Clovey, good night. Sky, Cindy Thomas, Matthew Boyne, Casimir Thomas, good night to you, Pastor. Yolan Pariag, and Agatha Williams, Ann Andrews, I see Jacinta Livingston, I see you there. Hilary Joseph, Anthony to Natalia, John, Jackie Raymond, good night to all of you. Jillian Noel, I'm seeing all of you on the Facebook. I see Dr. Love, yeah, good night to you. Andre Noel, Latoya Maguire, good night. Lynn Joseph, Norma Roberts, Landon Jane, Leslie James, McLean Mitchell, Nurse Wendy Ann Maguire, Esther Peter, Charmaine Thomas, Wallan Akwat, Charmaine Ragbasing, Evelyn Narayan, Bernadette Joseph, Denise Fabio, Peter Stryker, Lois, Merrill George, Jill Williams, I see you, Joan Henry, Louisa Williams, John Mark, Sue, good night to you. Yeah, good night to each and every one of you. All right, nice. Yeah, good night to each and every one of you. I hope that you all are having a fabulous night tonight.
What it was, baby. Was a divine, baby. One pretty boy, baby. He was born in a manger. What it was, and in mother named Mary, and in father named Joseph. You tell me where we are gonna call him. You make we call him Papa. Who not really put up on?
And of course, we'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining us. Those of you who join us via our website. Yes, we do have our own website, you know.
I have died, oh Lord. I have died for. So Jesus, I love you.
Chris London, yeah, good night to you.
I am the oh, Jesus.
Anne Marie and the squad, good night, yeah. Know all of you listening together.
Zion in the middle of the night.
Martin and Miss B,
When me back against you,
Richard and Paula,
I'm in a doctrine at all. Holy Ghost among them. Jesus, you turn me out.
Mr. Hudson Macphil and Mrs. Maureen Macphil, a special good night to both of you.
We are something. Our
Mr. and Mrs. Crookshank, it's been a while, eh? Mr. and Mrs. Crookshank, how are you all doing?
way be thy name.
And to our listeners out there in Carriacou and Petit Martinique, a special good night to you. Let me just send a little message to the authorities, because it seems as though they forget there's a place in Carriacou up on Windward side they call Experiment. Yeah, the people need to get some water and so on. I don't know if the message has not been reaching to you on island, but just in case it has not reached to you on island, we are letting you know that there are some people in an area called Experiment. You know where Experiment is, right? Right. They need water and so on. They haven't been getting stuff really. So there's a call for some assistance for those folks out there. All right.
Put up on them sooner.
Also, what's this I'm hearing about last night? There, at least one of the shelters, there was no gas for the generator, so the people were in the dark for the night. Come on, you have to. If there's an issue, say there's an issue. Let folks who can help assist. Yeah, because several of us, several different people, are trying to help as much as possible. We're not doing like some other radio programs that are out there, who at a time like this, they are focused on what they can get for themselves and their radio program and that sort of thing. No, we're not asking anybody to give us any $15,000 and kind of thing because we want to go and do things for our radio station. Meanwhile, it have people sleeping in shelter in Carriacou. Yeah? That just shows you the kind of people that we've been dealing with here, you know. That people would go to you and saying that they want to do transmitter and this and that and asking you to come and pay for that. And you know, it have some wicked people who go in and go behind that. Meanwhile, you have people sit down in shelter in Carriacou. Yeah? People lie down. Some of them not even on proper things, they lie down. In Petit Martinique, you have situation where you have elderly people that have had to lie down basically on a piece of cloth and the bare concrete. And instead of trying to see how you can assist these people, they're trying to assist themselves, using disaster as an avenue to help themselves. There's not the time for that kind of nonsense. The time will come for that. You want to do that any other time, but no, it's definitely not the time for that. Yeah, I know I'm speaking to the converted here, you know. I know I'm speaking to you're basically preaching to the choir right now, I know. But that's not a nonsense. That just shows you the type of individuals that are there. That just shows you the mentality of those individuals that they would think along that sort of line. Time like this, they're focusing on what they could get for themselves, not focusing on how they can help the people of Carriacou, Petit Martinique, the people of St. Patrick. We do have a guest that will be joining us tonight in roughly the next 15 minutes or so. We do have a guest that will be joining us, and that's Dr. Augustine Panchu. We will be speaking about, because I'll tell you why I decided that we need to speak to Mr. Panchu. Now, on my trip to Carriacou, over the weekend, when I went up to Carriacou on Friday, one of the things that I noticed it when I was getting onto the boat. I recognized it on the boat, and when I got to Carriacou, I saw it on several people. There are several people, many people who are in a state of shock out there in Carriacou. Many people who are in a state of shock. These individuals basically saw everything that they worked for disappear in a matter of hours. Years you've been working to build up that house. Years. You work, you put on piece. You work, you do the next thing. You work, you do the roof. You work, you do this. You put on the bathroom, toilet. You do different things. And after years of working, in just a few hours, it was gone. So there are many people that are in a state of shock. I see people going by the Osprey, and some people rude to the staff at the Osprey. And so all you don't realize, some of these staff, the local staff of the Osprey, all you don't realize some of these people house gone too. See people being rude to some of them. Their roof gone, their house gone, but they're out, they're working. They're trying to help people, facilitate people getting to and from. And it's the same with some of the people on some of the other vessels, the Turtle Bay and so on. They lost everything, in some cases, but they're still there providing a service. So rather than trying to be rude to them and trying to be aggressive towards them, and the thing is, I understand where some of the aggression is coming from. There are people down here who have children in Carriacou, and they want to use any means that they can to get to Carriacou or to get stuff up to Carriacou to their children and their family and their mothers, their father, their grandparents. They want to do that, so they are a bit aggressive in trying to do it. I understand where some of the aggression is coming from. But I recognize the signs of shock and trauma. I recognize it in many people. I saw one individual and they were standing there and their eyes were fixed. They stood up and and I'm speaking on the boat itself. I recognize that with an individual. They was on the boat there and their eyes were fixed. For several minutes, they're just there and they're just staring into the blankly out there. And I was seeing it with several people outside of the boat, on the boat in Carriacou. So the psychosocial, that psychological help that needs to be done. Okay, you recognize after Hurricane Ivan, there were several initiatives that took place. One in the school system, there were several initiatives that took place there, working with the young ones, because I remember my stepdaughter at the time, they had them drawing. They said, draw what you saw during the hurricane and so, and they had to draw the stuff and they spoke to them about it and they dealt with it on that level. There was an excellent program that went throughout the school system, trying to get the children to be able to address their fears and their concerns and the trauma that they went through. And then you had the cultural part of it, where you had the plays and the different things that were taking place that made people start to laugh a bit at some of the things that happened during it. And it was as a coping mechanism to try and deal with different aspects of it. But I'm no psychologist. We have a psychologist who will be on with us a little later. And not a little later, in a little while, he'll be on with us and we'll be discussing the various aspects of this and ways that we can probably help. And he's been helping. Otherwise, today, I realize and I recognize that he went into St. Patrick today. Yeah, he's not just talking and saying, well, people need help. Because we have a lot of folks that are just talking and saying, people need help, And we have people that are criticizing for criticizing's sake. I criticize to see improvements. I don't criticize for criticizing's sake. And I'll take a call. Somebody's calling. Hello, good night.
Yes, good night, Brother Sheldon.
Hey, good night. How are you?
Greetings to you, my brother. How is everything?
Well as can be under the present circumstances.
Right. Well, listen, I really want to put in a quick piece before the doctor comes,
Yes, go right ahead, yeah.
Yes, I totally agree with you, brother. So what this government is not realizing, and you can see it based upon how they have handled and how they are handling the citizens of Grenada, especially with regards to aid and so forth for the people of Carriacou and Pidimatnik. Mm-hmm. No, they're not understanding, and that's why Dr. Mitchell has asked them to go to school and learn before they want to be the Jefe. I don't think they understand, just as exactly what you're saying. When a disaster or in other words, the impact of a disaster on people would be resulted in panic, right? In fear, in sadness, And as you were saying a while ago, people would be gazing because all that they have worked for mesmerized just before the eyes, before you can contend. I've had a young brother calling me from Carriacou. As a matter of fact, he visited Carriacou. And the things that he saw in Carriacou, right? And the thing that he have experienced, he wake me up 12 o'clock in the night telling me of some of his encounter and asking me to call certain persons in Carriacou, right? To ask them to visit that little community and try to see what they could do for this person. Because the government now has just set up these draconian laws, right? I know they could do anything when there is a disaster. They could make laws and so on. But what they are doing is that they are not helping the people that are most hurting at this time. So people would experience all type of things like psychosomatic illness. They're not crazy, but they're acting mad, right? They're feeling all this deep sense of sadness and resentment. And you would find that people would be passing the blame on maybe a child. A person might pass the blame on a child. Maybe that person would have traveled and the hurricane would have damaged the property. So the child or the husband or whoever was left in the house, now the roof and everything is gone, they would blame it on the person that was in the house. Mm-hmm. So I totally agree with you, my brother, and I'm so thankful that you have invited Dr. Panchu to come on this program to deal with this matter of the psychological effects that is now experienced by people upon the impact of this devastating hurricane. So I want a message to the government that they must soften up, right? They must be more lenient, and this kind of dictatorship kind of method of governing, it is not for us. And the worst thing, that there are persons within the system, like the doctor, who are enforcing that kind of law on the people. Imagine you want relief to go to your people, and you have to go through all this different, bureaucracy. You understand? Mm-hmm. Would Morris Bishop do that? They've been calling on Morris Bishop. Would Morris Bishop behave that kind of way? Well, as far as I could remember, Morris Bishop championed a lot of causes for the poor and vulnerable people. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Mm-hmm. And that's why they kill him, because they find that he was ascending to the bourgeois ideology and the capitalist ideology, right? We need the government to step aside and act differently. I'm thankful to you, my brother.
All right. Thank you so very much, Pastor.
Yes, you're welcome.
Yes, indeed, folks. We have about 6 minutes or so where we can take one or two of your calls before we bring on Dr. Panchu. He's not on yet. He'll be on shortly with us, knowing Dr. Panchu. He's very prompt. So I know he'll be on with us maybe even a minute or two. But we can take some of your calls. Yeah, I can leave the lines open. And we can take some of your calls before we bring him on. It's just that I know what I saw. I've seen it before. After Hurricane Ivan, I saw it. Yeah, and there was a lot of you wondering why a person was so easy, a person who normally was happy-go-lucky, and they were getting upset easily, and they were getting angry and that sort of thing. So I recognized it. I saw it. Yeah, I didn't see the anger and thing yet in a lot of people, but I know it's there. It's bubbling under the surface. Yeah. So there must be a concerted approach in how you address this issue before it gets out of hand, and something that should not have happened, if you nipped it in the bud early, happens. Because it's not just rebuilding the structures. It's not just providing the food and these sort of things. There's a human being that is there as well that has been damaged. It's not just the structures that's been damaged. On a psychological level, there's a human being, and you have to deal with the human being. Yes, folks, I will take some of your calls before we bring on Dr. Panchu. As I said, he's not on yet, but he'll be on with us in a short while. So I will take some of your calls. 440-7377 and 347-329-3... What I'm saying, yeah, 3101. Sometimes I have to second guess myself when I'm calling out the number. Yes, prior, that's why I used to have Devon in studio too, Devon used to remember that, So 440-7377 and you see again, right? I forget it again. 347-329-3101. All right, so those are the numbers for you to call on the inside. You can call us on WhatsApp as well and make your little presentation before Dr. Panchu joins us tonight. Yeah, you could give us a little call in the interim.
And I want to say blessing to the artists that's come before me.
Yes, indeed. Man saying blessings to the artists, Yeah, Dana, we got to move forward a little bit there. Yeah, and Hurricane Beryl is still out there creating a lot of havoc, Yeah. Let me just say something, though, very importantly to the cleanup teams. It is a lesson that we learned the hard way after Hurricane Ivan during the cleanup. When you're cleaning up, please, the utility lines, the electricity lines, and the telephone company lines, do not cut them. Put them to the side. I remember after Hurricane Ivan, there was a situation where some people were still able to get calls and they had internet in specific areas. And when people went cleaning, they cut the poles and then they cut the lines. Yeah? But as much as possible, even if you have to leave it hanging or move it to the side, because when you cut it, then the telecom company has to come. They have to rewire the place totally. Whereas they could have come otherwise and just put up the poles. But now they have to come and they have to rewire areas. So please, to the folks who are doing the cleanups in different areas, even those who may be going up to Carriacou to do the cleanup, those who are doing cleanup in the St. Patrick area and any other areas, as much as possible, please do not cut the lines. The electricity lines, once you cut them, then there's a problem. They have to be joined. I remember the Cubans were here after Ivan and they were able to join them. The Cubans, these people special. These people were able to join these lines and you could never tell it cut in some instances. Yeah, where people were going to get things to come and put back, they say no. Yeah, they went and they cut the line, they put the lines back together. So that's one. When it comes to the lines, please do not cut the lines. When you cut the lines, you're creating a situation where it's going to take longer to restore services to you. All right? So when you cut the lines, it is going to take longer to restore services to you. So as much as possible, let's please avoid cutting the electricity lines, the other lines, and so move the poles and the lines to the side, but try not to cut them. Some people with chainsaws, they're cutting it. No, when you cut it, it's going to take longer to restore. It goes for those who are up in Carriacou right now and hearing this. Please avoid it. Folks, I think we've been joined by Dr. Panchu. Let me just make sure that we have him here properly. Let me get the audio first of all. Dr. Panchu, good night.
Good night, Sheldon. Good night to all of our listening audience of Talking Points.
Yes,
it's really
indeed.
good to be able to join you tonight.
Yes, indeed, Dr. Pan. We'd like to thank you so very much for always making yourself available. The moment we call and we say, Doc, we need you, the only thing you need after that is you need to know what time and you need the link to come on. That's the good thing.
Absolutely. I am a man of service, and I think you know that about me. I make myself available as much as I can, especially when it comes to Grenada. So I have a very soft spot in my heart for Grenada, and when Grenada hurts and I can be of service, I make myself available.
Yes, because
I was here. I came in on the 23rd. And just in time for the hurricane. So I'm here. I'll be here for another couple, maybe about another 2 weeks before I head elsewhere. And I'm going to do as much as I can here.
Well, the thing is, I'm glad that you were here, and that you would be able. I'm hoping that you're going to Carriacou soon. Knowing you, I think you probably have a ticket or you have a plan already.
Well, I do. I have a plan. I was planning to go this Thursday. But I may put it off for maybe next week, sometime next week. I wanted to go up with my vehicle, but I didn't want to spend 3 days. And the boat that can accommodate me only goes up Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So I may have to do a shuttle with the Osprey and go up one day, come back the same evening. So
Yeah,
we'll
because
look at that.
you don't want to go up and become a burden that they have
Yeah,
to
I
find
don't
food and
want to.
them thing. Yeah.
I want to be flexible, and I want to be able to move around and do what I need to do. Because I am very familiar with the landscape of Carriacou. I've been there several times. I have worked a lot with people in Carriacou. So, in some ways, I want to be very independent when I get there. And yeah, so that's it.
But before we get to Carriacou, I recognize that today you were doing quite a bit of work in Grenada. I realized that you were in the St. Patrick area. Tell us a bit about what you were doing in St. Patrick. And I'm
Well,
sorry I don't have the system to pull up the pictures and show at the same time, so I'll have to
oh,
play it
that's
after or
true. That's
something.
true.
Yeah, so
Well,
but
well,
go
I
ahead.
tell you, I've been planning since this thing to once the outer parishes are open enough to be able to go there. I taught secondary school at Grenada as the comprehensive, and so I am very familiar with the people of Rose Hill, River Sally, Montrose, Montreach, and so I just wanted to go on that side. And as I was planning to go, I contacted NADMA, and they were able to give me a whole lot of stuff. They were really happy because they had a list of people who needed stuff, and so I filled up my truck with a lot of stuff, care packages for about 32 people, including, a lot of good food stuff. People have sent me messages and said, wow, they have not received these kind of good goodies in a long time. Yeah, it's like really good groceries. And then I had tarpaulins and bottled water. So I was able to go into the villages. I started off at Pointsville, head up to Montrose, then made my way down to La Tasse, then inside of River Sally, then into Rose Hill. Those areas that I focused. Then I went to Monroe, not Hermitage side. So I did a lot of work. And Sheldon, what I saw today, it broke me. It broke my heart. Um, a lot of destruction in Rose Hill in the back of River Sally, a lot of destruction of homes. And I know you started off your program by talking about, you know, that which you take a lifetime to build, you sit there and in 30 seconds, it's totally eviscerated. It's just stubble that's left. And I see some buildings that you would think that they are strong because they are concrete, but they are in rubbles, and you can't find a piece of zinc covering or any rafters in the roof, and so what I saw really sort of has left an indelible impression upon me again. And incidentally, Sheldon, this is the first time that I'm experiencing a hurricane in Grenada.
Wow.
I wasn't born yet in Janet time. But when Ivan came, I was studying in the US, and then we had Emily, etc., but I was not around. So this is the very first time that I have a real experience of what the boisterous wind. And I say luckily, and I don't know if I'm using the word right or loosely, because I can consider the people in Carriacou, Petit Martinique, St. Patrick, St. Mark's as unlucky. It was just that they lived in the place where the hurricane, passed over. When the hurricane came on land, I was in St. Paul's, so I was able to safely stand in the veranda because it's really protected and look at the trees sway and the whistling wind, and it was really scary. So, but there were no destruction in my area. Maybe the popping of a couple trees, to what people in Montrose and Rose Hill, River Sally, Sautez. I went down to Lafayette also in Sautez, and I saw massive houses that the rooftops are no longer in the vicinity of where it was, you know.
But strange,
So
strange enough, we still are only hearing of Carriacou and Petit Martinique, and we know that, yes, the devastation in those areas is significant, but you're kind of surprising me with some of what I'm hearing about St. Patrick.
yeah. Well, well, I tell you, the number of massive trees that are still being hewn and chopped up by workers is amazing. I didn't think that the destruction, and it's not just the massive trees, but the hundreds of cocoa and nutmeg. As you drive through, you know, Montrose area, you see the agricultural stock is has taken a beating, and you know, very the shrubs and the cocoa, they're just not there. And you see the banana plantations or blogger plantations, they are totally really destroyed. So
Yes,
yeah, that is,
agriculture wise, as you mentioned that, agriculture
yeah,
wise, because we know St. Patrick and St. Andrew, and so when it comes to agriculture, is there significant damages from what you've seen?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I know because I have had people who have lands. I was talking, and in my distribution, Sheldon, what I did today was to spend time with families, and we're going to talk. I mean, this is preamble really to the conversation that I
Yeah,
want us to
yeah,
have about
yeah.
trauma and the psychological needs of our people. So we're
Hmm.
just doing the preamble really right now because uh you know, I did not just deliver care package. I looked out for people, and you know, Sheldon, you know, I met a lady today. She is probably in her 90s, um, and and you could see how shaken she is, even after a week and a half has passed. And she was so grateful and thankful. I think maybe not just for the care package, but just to see me and to give an outpouring of gratitude. Thank you for coming and look for me. And as she held on to me, you could feel the trembling in her voice, as though I represented some form of comfort, some form of reassurance to her. And I know that she is hurting because you know, her little house, part of the roof got blown out, but her daughter, who has a massive house in the yard, just everything just went. And you know, so you introduce your program tonight, and you talk about as you made your way to Carriacou, you saw that stark, as it were, zombie-like look on the face
Yeah.
of people,
I could tell you,
and
I
and I
saw one young lady, and she was just
yeah,
like staring. Not left, not just direct ahead,
yeah,
blank.
yeah. And I saw that today. I saw that today. I saw people sitting in under mango trees and other shaded trees, and you could see as I drove that there was this blank look. They didn't know how to maybe emotionally process, and so they didn't know whether they should smile at me, whether they should cry, whether they should show a sign of disgust. So there was this blank look on some of the faces that I saw. I saw children, I saw mothers with children, I saw the elderly on my visit today, and that stare that you look there, Sheldon, is what psychologists who study and who wrote about the way we grieve when we lose something. The first thing is that we go into a stage of denial. It's as though, no, that can't happen. It's not happening. You know, there is no way that my roof is going to be blown out. You know, until the rain start coming and the sun, and then you need to go to bed and you realize that your mattress is soaked or it's not there anymore, and that the roof of your house is no longer there. And then you start thinking and believing, well, actually, yes, it is no longer with me. So that blank look you mentioned we're going to see it for a little while. until it hits people that yes, really and truly, I've lost everything. Um, and now it's probably a good time for me to start thinking about rebuilding, how I am going to process this loss. Because really and truly, um, what happened there is a loss, you know, and that's what trauma really. So maybe it's a good time now for us to sort of segue into the real gist of our conversation tonight. Tonight, Sheldon, I want to assure our listeners, and I am hoping, Sheldon. So I'm supposed to be with you until the end, right?
Yeah, as long as you want to be, Doc.
Right.
Right
Well,
up to
yes,
the
I
end.
do
Yeah.
have time. Tonight I've dedicated the hour and a half or 2 hours with you. But I really would like for our listeners to call in. And what I'm going to do tonight is, your program is dubbed as is a political program, hard-hitting political program.
Sometimes
And
we take a little rest.
yeah, and I don't want that to change about you. But tonight, I really just want to focus on the emotional and psychological well-being of our people. I think as a professional, I, well, I will always be a professional, but um, I want my position tonight on this program to be about how can and how can I get other people to become involved in the healing, in the psychological healing and emotional healing of our people, because our people are hurting. And there is a lot of denial about the hurt. And the denial start to come from people themselves who are in disbelief and who have not yet um, processed this great loss that they see. So they may engage. I see a lot of people engaging in the frivolity of drinking, and I know why they're doing that. They're doing that because somewhere along the line they need to numb their feelings so that they don't have to deal with the reality of the greater loss that has just happened.
Yeah.
And that is part of what trauma is. And we are going to talk a lot more about it, but I want us really to have enough time to entertain questions from people who really are hurting or who know of somebody and they want to make a referral. So tonight I'm okay with you if you share my personal phone number so that they can reach me. If you want to put it up on the board or somewhere that people can really reach me. I have had a lot of calls. My number is 406-3601, and that's my WhatsApp number in Grenada. So you can find me anywhere, everywhere.
All right. So
Yeah.
give the number again, a little slower. 406.
406
Mm-hmm.
3601.
Right.
Yeah.
3601. So
Yeah.
406 3601.
Yeah.
All right.
That's
And we'll give
my
it
WhatsApp number.
we'll give it
Yeah.
every now and again. Now,
Yeah,
now
absolutely.
the beginning,
Yes.
the genesis of this issue that we're identifying tonight.
Yeah.
Give us from the genesis of this issue. How did people get to this stage psychologically, mentally, emotionally? What are the root causes of them getting to this stage? I know we
Okay.
spoke a bit earlier, but now let's
Yeah.
go into
Yeah.
it now.
Yeah, we are going to go into some psychological stuff, and I promise that I'm going to make it very simple. Yeah, for there is no need for a lot of psychological jargon tonight, but I'll make it very simple so that even the child or the regular, I don't, there is no regular folk, but could understand what I'm saying. The smallest of children can understand. So first of all, what Grenada experienced is a hurricane. A hurricane brings with it threat to life, to limbs, death. As of this time, fortunately, I dislike using fortunately, but because if one person dies, then that is not, that is traumatic in and of itself. But I'm hearing that there are either 3 or 4 people who lost their lives either directly or indirectly through Hurricane Beryl. And maybe it is a little more. I don't know that I'm up to date on the actual
The
statistics
thing
and
is, I haven't heard an official figure. I'm hearing of stuff by the way, so I think something official needs to
right.
come out. Yeah.
Yes, I think maybe very soon there is going to be a release and it is going to tell us the loss of lives. So a hurricane represents a a distressing event, a distressing event because we had a category 4 earthquake. It therefore means that the wind speed was
Well,
anywhere from
hurricane. You said earthquake. The earthquake was the week before.
sorry, yeah. Did I say earthquake? Yeah,
Yes, you
the
did. Yeah.
earthquake was the week before. In fact, Sheldon, when the earthquake struck, I was in Trinidad. So I've been in the Caribbean for about a week and a half before I came to Grenada. So I started off in St. Kitts, then I went to Antigua, Trinidad, and then my last stop, of course, is home. And so I'm on a little vacation in some form or fashion, and I'm going to end up staying in Grenada just a little longer than I planned to. The very interesting thing about it is that I never booked a return ticket. And I'm wondering why didn't I book a return ticket? And now I know
Mm-hmm.
why I did not book a return ticket because
Yeah.
my return was definitely not something that I could have planned for, you know. So
Yeah.
now
Mm-hmm.
I'm here. I am going to stay on for a couple of days. So let's go back to trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma, trauma results from a distressing event that threatens life. So it could be imposing enough that you feel that you're going to die, or somebody close to you is going to die or lose their life. Okay? And when you have that kind of a category 4 hurricane that pelts down 120, 125 miles an hour, that's double what a regular car will travel. So you know that the wind speed is treacherous and it could really hurt you. And and for people, what we have to understand too, and I'm going to make the connection because there are people who are alive now who experienced Ivan and Emily. And so, what this hurricane did to them was to trigger some of the traumatic experiences of the former two hurricane within the last 15, 20 years. And so now they have a third threat to their safety. And these are the people that we have to be very cautious of. And as helpers or psychologists or counselors, we are now have to be very, very cautious how we deal with these people. And it's not just, okay, so it's not just the psychologists, the counselors, the therapists that we have on island or who will come thereafter, but also you ask yourself, what kinds of policies that our leaders are going to put in place. Very often, Sheldon, it is very easy for us to identify the physical devastation. Okay, so we can see rooftops blown away. We can see trees, nutmeg trees falling down, coconut trees destroyed, hotels destroyed, boats destroyed, cars destroyed. And then the insurance now start to calculate the cost of replacing, the cost of replacing buildings and trees and property. And very often we sort of forget the immediate impact on the greatest human resource, which is our people. Okay. And I want to sound the warning, Sheldon, and this is non-governmental. It's just for us to be able to, okay, for us to be able to put in place structures. And remember always, I applaud any organization and or government or leaders who think about the well-being of its people. not just the physical well-being, but the emotional, psychological well-being of its people. So I say to NADMA, I say to everybody else, UN, USAID, um, uh, Group of Five, whoever is sending aid to Grenada at this time must also be cognizant of the emotional, psychological needs. So when you're sending doctors and nurses and firefighters, please put in there a cadre of psychologists or counselors, people who are trained in mental health, so that they can also do some healing work with our people. Because, Sheldon, we can fix a broken window and we can fix a busted pipe or replace a couple sheets of zinc. What we cannot fix is an untreated emotional or trauma-based emotional scar. If we leave it untreated, then it festers, and that is where you hear people talk about post-traumatic stress disorder or post-traumatic stress reaction. So right now, what we have had as a result of this hurricane is what psychologists refer to as acute stress disorder. So what we have, because it's immediate, PTSD does not develop in a week, okay? It must be a response to the event after 6 months. So it's only a week and a half. So what we have right now is what is referred to as acute stress disorder, which is the lead up to post-traumatic stress. If we don't get treated here, if we do not process with people the fears, if we do not process with people and teach them coping skills and resiliency skills of how to, relax themselves to be able to sleep at night and how they, because right now people are going to respond. Somebody told me, they're scared today. Someone said, Dr. Panchu, I'm scared to go to bed. Well, I immediately understand what that means. That means is that when you go to bed, it's as though you're not aware of what is happening. Because of the recency of this hurricane, people are unsure about their safety. So they're dealing with what is called acute stress disorder. And if we don't process with these people and families and others who are jitty because they see the cloud getting dark, or they hear a couple of raindrops on the roof, if we do not process or help them to navigate this experience, it can lead to post-traumatic stress disorder. And when you have post-traumatic stress disorder, Sheldon, it takes a real amount of work and money and time to navigate post-traumatic stress disorder, because post-traumatic stress disorder is one of the most serious mental health disorders. Okay, you have things like schizophrenia, bipolar, and PTSD. Those are the real big three of mental health disorders. And when someone tells you, or you know of someone who is suffering from PTSD, then you know it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of resources to help them to experience a normal life. So what I want us to dwell with a lot tonight is, how do we navigate this acute stress disorder that this hurricane has brought to us? How do we see how are symptoms manifested in children, in teenagers, in the elderly, etc. So I don't know. Do you want to take a break?
No. And the
you
thing
want to
is,
ask questions?
You just started saying something, and while you were speaking, I started writing to ask you about how does this affect the different age groups, the elder, the middle age, the teenagers, I was just about to ask you about that, and I was making a note to ask you when you mentioned it. So
Okay.
let's go there now.
Okay.
How are people to recognize that it's manifesting either in themselves or people around them, that
Okay.
this emotional trauma that it is manifesting? What are some of the signs that it's manifesting?
Okay. All right. So let's start with children. Okay. Children are very vulnerable. Um, Research has taught me that depending on the age of the person who has experienced the traumatic event, it will tell you how easy or how difficult it is to help them to navigate back into normalcy. Okay? And one of the very vulnerable population, in fact, the a population that has to be given a lot of significance is children. When a child experiences a traumatic event, he or she, and I want my listeners and I want you, Sheldon, to pay real close attention. When that happens in the life of a child, that child, let's say a child under 5. So let's do children under 5. Okay? And I could speak really well on this because Sheldon, my dissertation for my doctoral program was on post-traumatic stress reaction of Grenadian school-age children who experience Ivan. Now I have not made a big deal about it because I did a lot of research for my dissertation on Ivan because that's I was in school when Ivan came and I was right there smack middle of my doctoral program, and then I decided I needed to study that. So I have a lot of data on school age children and trauma. The very first 5 years of the child's life, the child does not have the cognitive ability to yet understand a serious threat to life. Okay? Why this is so for a child? This is so for a child because a child under normal upbringing has not seen threats to life as some of us adults. So a child will nonchalantly walk in the middle of a street because they have not yet experienced a car accident or seen anyone hit by a car that tells them that if a car hits you, you're going to die. Okay? However, watch this. At 5 years old, the brain can process danger. It only processes danger differently to the adult brain. So when you see children who didn't cry during the storm or was fascinated by the wind or the breaking of the mango branch and mangoes being strewn all over the ground, if they did not have this awe or crying experience, well, they may have cried if they saw an adult crying, but in generally, they have never experienced this threat of life. So the brain is not going to register it as though it is a threat to their life. But watch this. As the brain processes that information as they grow older. That is when the real effects of the trauma is going to start kicking in. So we don't see the effects in some children immediately. It's when they start to go into the prepubescent area. So you see they start to turn 8 years and 9 years and they start to react to heavy showers or heavy wind or the breaking of a branch
Oh,
because
thunder and lightning.
a thunder. Very good. Thank you for bringing in that. Thunder or lightning. That is when they start making the connection because at that time the brain is a little more mature and is able now to embrace danger in its real sense. And if we don't work with children, child psychologist is a very specialized field of psychology. Okay, I have some training in that, I am not a child specialist. I am more family, and I work a lot with adolescents, but children, I have done some work, but I can't say I'm a specialist child psychologist. But there are people who are specialized in the first 7 years of life, and they know every brain activity to look for, every emotional, every facial expression, everything that happens in the life of a child, and they can pinpoint it immediately, whether it's research and or in observation, and tell you exactly what's happening. So what I do know, though, is that children, as they under 5, they really don't have the ability yet to conceptualize danger, but as they grow older, those memories, Sheldon, and that is what is important. Those memories are going to be triggered by the lightning, and they're going to be wondering, well, why is it that I'm having this reaction? Or the parents are going to be wondering, there is no real hurricane, but you know what? 5 years ago, they experienced the hurricane, and their brain is just ready to process it. And so I say to the government, I really want to implore them tonight, is to ensure that the children population, and I know someone told me that I think they're planning to take the children, the school-age children from PT Martinique, and bring them down to somewhere in Grandance. And that may be good, but I tell you, I caution, if I had my way, or if someone seeks, my advice, unless the parents are going, it is not going to be emotionally healthy for children to pluck children and put them in a situation in the care of strangers, because psychologically, it is not the best practice. Nowhere in the world you will see a practice like that when you talk about psychological well-being after a disaster. Okay, you must have people. There is something in child development and in psychology, Sheldon, that we refer to as attachment. So there is a theory called the attachment theory, and that theory says that children thrive best, not thrives, thrive best in a safe, recognized, familiar environment. And that includes the people who care for them. Okay? So if you have strange caregivers for these children that are going to be taken, and I don't know if that's true, so I shouldn't establish it as truth. I only heard that these children were going to be sent here. Unless, if that happens, the children are now going to have to spend months or weeks or months trying to embrace familiarity with these new faces amidst the danger that they just face. So it would be really good if we could have parents and guardians with whom they are familiar with to help them navigate, maybe have them settle for the first couple of weeks before the parents transition back into the real life of work and adult living. Okay? So children, here are some of the symptoms that you will see in children. Clinginess. Children don't want to leave your feet. They don't want to leave the comfort of your parents. They want to cling on to you. They cry if you put them down. If you have to go to work or to Grenville or wherever to pay bills, they will express what is referred to as separation anxiety. So they become very anxious because they think that a safety net is going to be destroyed. That, coupled with sleeplessness, they're going to have disturbed sleep. Children. Now, adults are going to have similar things, but children more will have disturbed patterns of sleep. So if you start seeing your child finding it real difficult to fall asleep, or when they fall asleep, it is difficult for them to stay asleep, then start thinking, I may need someone to really work with my child. But as I said already, Sheldon, it takes a specialized group of people to work with children. And I don't know Grenada, I don't believe Grenada has a child psychologist or someone that is trained specifically to work with children. Okay? You have a lot of school counselors, but these these people are not trained clinically to do clinical work. Of course, you can do advising and coaching and mentorship, but what we need here in Grenada at this time is an appeal for the wider community, maybe even in the diaspora, to come spend a couple weeks and do clinical work where we can observe and we can work with brain activity and where we can, restructure patterns so that children can start to feel safe. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Quickly, another thing. So in addition to sleeping problems and clinginess or fear of separation, you also have the return of a very significant biological function called enuresis. Enuresis is where children start wetting the bed. So children at 4 and 5, children, in our context, they're probably grown out of Pampers already,
Mm-hmm.
and they're no, so they wake up in the night and they go to the restroom or the bathroom, and they don't necessarily wet the bed. They may have an occasional accident. But if you see your child returning to a period where they start wetting the bed, and so the clinical word for it is enuresis. If you see that's happening, then you start thinking, Sheldon, that my child is reacting to this traumatic event. Okay? And you have other things like eating patterns and social interaction patterns, which are less, significant than the enuresis and the clinginess and the separation
What
anxiety.
about things like grinding of teeth when they're sleeping and
Yes,
that sort of
yes,
thing?
yes. And so Sheldon, very good.
Bruxtation or something, I think they call it.
Yes. So watch this. Watch this. Very important point. You see, what acute stress disorder in children and in people in general bring on is sometimes it's a catalyst for a mental health condition called anxiety. So that's anxiety is feeling insecure and unsure about something, about life situation. That's how we get anxious or we develop anxiety. And if anxiety is not treated well, then it leads to what is called panic disorder. And panic disorder is the extreme form of an anxiety disorder. So children, when they're anxious, they will start biting their nails. They'll start grinding their teeth. If they did not do it before, these are telltale signs of the turmoil that is going on in their body and in their mind, sometimes, Sheldon, for which they cannot express, they cannot verbalize. So what they do is that they grind their teeth, they bite their nails, they cry for very simple things in their experience. So that is for children. I don't know if anyone has a question.
And folks, feel free to call at any point in
Yes,
time.
let them know that in addition to the great information that I want to share or we're sharing, that they can call with anything that they may think or see or want to get clarification on, because sometimes we talk a lot and they have questions, but they're scared. So let our listeners know that
you can call.
They can ask me anything tonight.
Yeah. We'll try to work it out in a way that Doc can hear, because we have that little issue still in studio for the people on Zoom to hear.
Yeah.
Let me ask this question. One listener's asked the question earlier of me. What does it mean with dreams? This person was not in Carriacou, but they've been having some strange sort of dreams and so. Is that as a result of and it's hurricane related. They dream they're asking and wake up asking with the flashlight, that sort of thing, the hurricane coming. So dreams.
Well, let me say this here. When you study dreams, okay, which is a part of psychology that we refer to as the psychodynamic view or the psychoanalysis view, okay? That is where you talk about dreams and you talk about unfulfilled desires, and so you try to go into the past of the client or the person who is experiencing the dreams, because dreams are usually unfulfilled fantasies or unrealized thought processes that you have had. Really, dreams do not come from, it's dreams is not magical. So that's what I want to say. Dreams is not magical. Dreams actual is part of our experience. It's just that there is something, Sheldon, in us that we have what is called consciousness and awareness. And sometimes we don't, things are happening around us. And someone may say, but Sheldon, didn't you see this? And you may be absorbed, concentrating on one thing and miss this thing completely. But what happens though, Sheldon, is that our mind is as a recorder and it records everything. So there are things that for which we may not be conscious and we may not be in the awareness of, but it doesn't mean that it did not happen in the sphere of our life. So this is what dreams are. So dreams come up because the information needs to be filtered by the brain. But if you are not conscious and aware of it, there is no filtering, there is no processing. So what a dream is, when you're in your sleep, the brain is actively, and the brain is saying, listen, something happened in your sphere today, and you were not aware of it. You didn't think about it, you didn't talk about it, and here it is, it's coming back up in your dreams. Dreams are not magical. Dreams are really unprocessed information that we have experienced. We might be listening to music and somebody is saying in a conversation close by us, we're not listening to the conversation, but our brain is picking it up. And then later on, it's been revealed to us because that conversation is saying, the brain is saying, but Sheldon, you didn't acknowledge that conversation. But yeah, because I was listening to something else. So, okay, so now is the time for us to acknowledge this conversation. Now is the time for us to acknowledge that this happened in our sphere. So that's what the dream is about. So maybe the person might have read something. Maybe they know that July is the beginning of the hurricane season. So maybe the brain is telling them something about hurricane, and it may be really like a reality check for them that, hey, yeah, this is what I'm dreaming and this is what I'm having. There is no magic. There is no God vision for the dreams. Dreams are really experiences that have not been dealt with by the brain. And in the night when we're asleep, especially when we go through what is referred to as rapid eye movement sleep. So that's the deep sleep. That's what we dream. And when that happens, those things come up, and they are really part of our experience. Yeah, but I like the question.
No, we've asked about the different ages. We heard how children, particularly the younger ones, react when it comes to the trauma that they've been through. Now, persons in the middle age, young adults, how can we recognize this in them? I know the one. I call it the 1,000-yard stare, because I've seen they call it. Some people call it the 1,000-yard stare. They've seen 1,000 yards in front past them. But how do they react to it, and then separate to them? I want you, because it's 9:15 already. We don't want to run out of time. I want you to briefly go into that one, and also for the elderly, people who are 60 and over, because I think that they're when it comes to their brain and how they process things, it may be slightly different. I don't know for sure. I'm just assuming. So quickly, those two areas, the adults and the elderly.
Let me first talk about the elderly. The elderly are a dear population to me. Okay, I guess you understand why, because I'm close there.
All of us.
All of us are, right? So we're getting there. But here is what works well for the elderly. There is something called resiliency skills. Resiliency skills are like scars, Sheldon, and every time you get hurt, there is a scar, and soon there is enough callus on that wound that you don't feel it anymore. Okay? Right. So what resiliency skills say is that when I experience a distressing event and I find ways of coping and of dealing with it, when a similar event happens again, or a same kind of event happens, I can go back to what I did in the past. So the elderly for us right now, some of them can go back to Janet. How did they survive Janet? What did they do in Janet or after Janet? Then some of them can come back now to Ivan. Okay? So they may have scars from Janet, but they also have scars and coping skills that they have developed in Ivan. And then 2 years later or the next year, they have coping skills that they developed from Emily. And now they're going to have certainly some coping skills that they're developing from Beryl. What the elderly will show us is what hasn't killed you make you stronger. Okay? So in some ways, they become hardier. They become hardier. And experiences like these may not necessarily affect them to the great extent that it will for those of us who are experiencing it for the first time. However, let me quickly add something here. There are those from our elderly population who have been traumatized for Janet, but they never processed that. They became traumatized for Ivan and Emily, and now this Beryl is going to compound their trauma. So along the line, they have already developed PTSD. And here comes Beryl. So they are going to be on edge. But the elderly has a way of masking their trauma or the traumatic response. And so remember I told you that one of the vulnerable population is children. The next vulnerable population are the elderly, not adults as much as the elderly. So in the government's planning, they need to plan well to remember the children and also to remember the elderly, because there are many elderly people who are traumatized. Right now, a little rain, and they may not, because they wanna show some strength to their children and grandchildren. So they may not necessarily show it, so overtly, but covertly on the inside, they are hurting. These are the two populations that I really want our leaders to take note of: the children, the first 5-7 years of children, and the very elderly. People who are 65 plus, 70. Be careful with them.
Let me ask this question at this point then, before we move to the age groups between them. There's a move right now by government to transport some of the elderly at the homes in Carriacou down to Grenada, which in itself, especially you're speaking people here who are in their, the youngest ones are probably in their 70s. And you have people into their 80s and 90s that are now leaving the familiar surroundings of Carriacou and coming down. And you have many families where the elderly are being taken out of Carriacou right now, and they're coming to Grenada or other territories, along with the children. Not that they're coming down here in a government program, but families are taking them out of the immediate situation, especially considering the infrastructure problems and the supply problems and so on.
Yes.
What would you suggest in cases like this, that you're transferring these elderly? Should it be a short term? What should be done? Because even on Friday coming down, I noted that some of the elderly came down with that boat, and they came down to be transferred to homes down here. What would you suggest?
Sheldon, allow me to take about 2 minutes to give you an example of how to answer your question. I was a young fella, I was a teenager when I remember my grandfather, who lived in a remote village in Tivoli, which is called a Homer, so you know that. So he was the last house. We were the very last house. But as he got older, and my mom and her sister, we have moved down to Tivoli, the city. It became a little challenge for us to go every night and sleep and care for him because he wanted. But I remember that he never wanted to leave his house. He never wanted to leave his house. And Sheldon, his house was one of the older house with cow dung on the walls, those, paper and stuff. Mm-hmm. And even when he doesn't want us to fix it or to do anything, once it's not leaking, he's fine. But the time came when we wanted him to come down to the main Tivoli to live with us. And so I don't know what got into my parents. There was a Sunday they broke his house. I don't know if they told him, I don't know, whatever, but they broke the house, put it on a truck and brought it down so they could establish it in the lower Tivoli. And I know he grieved. I was a teenager, but in retrospect now, because I've studied the elderly, I realized that my grandfather grieved because of that decision. And I know the decision was to move him from where he grew up and establish his family, and spend all of his working life on that spot. And then in the wee hours of his life, the dying hours of his life, we brought him away. Now, answer your question. I'm hoping that 50% of the question is already answered. And I just shared a very personal story with you and our audience. But let me say this here. If the elderly who must move out of necessity and their safety can move with their caregiver, it helps to move them with their caregivers so that there is a familiar face that is accompanying them on the trip to Grenada. If family can come but the caregiver couldn't come, then maybe that might be an added expense, but the government and children need to think of that. If you want your parents who are in their 70s and 80s to live longer, then bring familiar people with that trip. To answer the second part of your question, should that be a short-term experience? Yes. In as much as we want to keep them safe, we should try everything to make it a very short-term experience so that they can go back to their very familiar ground. That is research. I'm not telling you supposition. I'm telling you about sound clinical research. If you want, very often in the United States, research has shown that when you take parents, guardians from their home and you put them in convalescent hospitals, they tend to deteriorate really much faster than if they were to stay in a familiar environment with people that they know. So that's research. And so, yes, we need to keep the elderly safe. We need to keep them, and take care of them. But we also have to do it expeditiously so that they're back in familiar territory. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, folks. And remember the phone number, 440-7377 and 347-329-3101. You can call Dr. Panchu if you've got a question for him or if you've got a query. And you can also, if you don't want to call him on air, because we know, especially when it comes to mental health and so on, some folks are very careful in relation to that. They would prefer to speak to him in private. Dr. Panchu is open to that. You can call him on 406-3601. So 406-3601. You can give him a call on that number and you can have a conversation with him. He's open to having a conversation. You can find him on WhatsApp on that number as well. So 406-3601. You can give him a call and have a chat with him in relation to that. Dr. Panchu, people my age.
Yes.
Teenagers. I'm not a teenager. I'm saying people my age and teenagers. So
Yeah.
middle-aged folks, teenagers, young adults,
Yeah.
how do they act out in relation to this? Because I'll say why I'm asking that question. I remember immediately after Hurricane Ivan, there was a lot of anger in people I didn't used to see anger in before. A lot of anger. Even when the supplies were being sent, as we said, the rations were being sent to St. David and other areas. You
Yeah.
realize people who were normally calm, relaxed, you saw them, they want to fight, they're ready to grab onto somebody's neck, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
I'm just saying from what I've seen, give us a little rundown. How do we recognize that? Because the people in Carriacou, they need to recognize it in themselves and each
Yeah.
other. And
Mhm.
those of us growing up need to understand what is going on. The NADMA staff who leave Grenada and go up can't think that
Yeah.
people just being arrogant, ignorant, or greedy. But there are reasons for that. You just look at your house, disappear in 100 and something mile wind. And one caller called last earlier, was it, yeah, on Thursday he called. Was it Thursday or last night? He called and he was speaking about himself and his brother under the bed. The roof went
Yeah.
and both of them under the bed, tie a string and trying to hold down the bed. And the hurricane is destroying everything around them. And he's crying, and his brother asking him, what are you crying for? And he
Yeah.
said, boy, well, wait, see. And the brother starts to cry too. And it sounds comical, but there's trauma in that.
Yes.
So go right ahead.
Well, this is a complicated thing because remember earlier on I introduced the grieving process, how we grieve when we lose or when we lose things, lives, or when we are threatened or when we're ill. Terminal illness is one of them. The first thing is the shock, or what we refer to as clinically the denial stage. Sheldon, the next stage, according to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who is the expert on grieving and trauma. The next stage in the process of denial, and then the next step from denial, the shock, is anger. So it's interesting that you brought up one of the symptoms that we are going to see in young adults, in adolescent, in teenagers, in middle-aged adult, is that they're now angry. It's an emotional response to the psychological distress that they have just witnessed. And I'll tell you why, Sheldon. I'm going to make it interesting for you. Sheldon, during the hurricane, all of those fellas who think they're bad, and all those who have a lot of muscles, and those who go to the gym like you.
Yeah, go take to drop off something.
Well, me too. I only go there I look at the building.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah. All those people who think that they can protect the woman and protect the children, they were helpless. Totally helpless. They couldn't go outside. Galvanized and zinc were flying like a razor. They sat there and watched their roof and their building and the crops just destroyed, and they are helpless. So when they walk outside on a Tuesday morning after that hurricane, as a way of coping and to bring back psychological balance, they have to be angry. And very often, according to Kubler-Ross, when people get angry, they're angry, first of all, at God and ask God, why did you allow this to happen to my family? How come not Dr. Panchu or Sheldon, but my family? And so they're angry because when people lose control, just typical, Sheldon, I'm going to teach a concept tonight. Why people fight in the rum shop or in the bar or in the dance hall. They fight because they think the other person has more control over them. That's why they fight. So it is that when you see the expression, sorry, of anger, it's because these people are so hurt that they didn't have control over the storm or the hurricane. And now they can have control over how much food they hoard or they fight for. Because now, according to the local talk, now the cat is away, the mice or the mouse comes out to play. Because during the hurricane, they couldn't do that. They had no control. But now they need, it's not an ego thing, it's just a self-preserving feeling that when people are traumatized, when they get out of the traumatic experience, they need to balance life, and so they need to have some form of control. And one way the humans seek to get control is by expression of emotional anger. Now, this is a lot that I'm saying here tonight. So it is not uncommon, and you're right. So let me show you this. NADMA officials, and I don't know that they know that. So but if they're listening, look out for the angry people. Look out for the people who got already and say they didn't get and get angry because of that. And it's not because they're greedy. No, it is because now they can have some form of control, and that's when they choose to exert that control. So we have to be patient with people. We have to be patient with people who take twice. We have to be patient with people who get angry. Let me show you this. I'm going to show you something, Sheldon, and you're going to say, oh, so that's what it was. Remember a question to a leader in a press conference on the day before the storm. The question was, what do you have to say to the people who are questioning why you went to a certain sporting event and were not on island to guide this process? And the response of that leader was, I have nothing to say to them, in a very angry tone. Now that anger was because at that time, that leader didn't have control.
Mm-hmm.
He was helpless. What? I am frolicking in a sporting event and my country is about to be devastated. The eye, you mean, is going to pass directly on my island and I'm in charge? So at that time, the anger that came out was one of embarrassment, one of helplessness. It was a cry. He was crying, please, somebody help me to make sense out of this. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So,
fully understand now.
No, you fully understand. I could tell you, I could make it make sense to you, because you see, during that time, a lot of us were thinking, oh man, that man is rude. He is heartless. No, he was not. Well, maybe he came out rude, but it was not out of heartlessness. It was out of, damn, I have lost control over this thing. I should have been here real for real. I should have warned my people. I should have asked supermarkets to stay open and people get food. Now, Sunday morning, I have to tell them to go and get food. And, storm is coming. And you have to make up for the deficit. So he was angry. And there the anger came out. I have nothing to tell them. Of course you do. You're my leader. You're supposed to have something to tell me. You're supposed to comfort me, because I'm going to die. I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to lose all of my plans. My car is going to be destroyed. You must tell me something. I depend on you to tell me something. So you see how psychology plays into everyday life. And if we are not careful, NADMA workers and us, those of us who go out and help, and you and others who go out, you may see, well, why is he so angry? Why is he so gluttonous? No, this is not that. At this time, the emotional response is now coming out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And folks, remember, you can call. We have roughly about 25 minutes again. I realize that some of you want to speak to Dr. Panchu personally, and you may not want to express yourselves on air. At least one person has sent and said that. So again, you can find him privately on 406-3601. That's 406-3601. 3601. 3601. And any of you could always message me. I'll give you the number as well. Also, as I remember at this time, Dr. Panchu, just an aside here, there was a caller last night that called asking for information regarding a family member that had died in Carriacou. You were supposed to WhatsApp me. I have not received a WhatsApp from you yet. You can WhatsApp me on 440-7377. WhatsApp me on that number. I'll get the WhatsApp. Just send me the name of the individual and any other information you have. I'll see what I can find on my end. I do have contacts. I can find that information from you. Just WhatsApp me. 440-7377. Yeah, make sure and do that. All right, Dr. Panchu, the workers themselves, and I think we have a caller on the line. Let's go to the phone line, and let me see how I can do this so that you can hear.
Okay.
Hello, caller.
Hello.
Hi, good evening. Let me see how I can do this so Dr. Panchu can hear you.
Hello.
Yes, go right ahead, caller. Yes, we're hearing you. You go right ahead.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. I'm 79 years old. I'm 79 years old. And I was about 9 to 10 years for Hurricane Janet. And then now I see a lot of hurricanes. But this one, they really had me going because God, as I was there watching and waiting. But one thing I have to thank God for, that I'm alive and my roof didn't go, but all my land's gone. So I kind of, nowadays, these few nights I just can't sleep.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Sheldon, I heard the caller.
Any little thing frightening me.
Okay.
My dear, I hear what you're saying. I hear in your voice a sense of distress and loss. And at your stage in life, you're right. After you were 10 when Hurricane Janet came. You saw Ivan. Now you saw Beryl. Beryl took away a lot of your stuff. It is not uncommon for you to be triggered and have sleepless nights. I want to advise you to take a hold of someone that you can trust with your information and share it, and be able to process the loss that you currently have had. Sheldon shared my number. If you want to reach out to me at some point in time, I will be willing to talk with you and help you navigate this loss, because there is no question that we cannot take this for granted, that it was a storm, hurricane that only devastated Carriacou, and we can build Carriacou and Petite Martinique back. A lot of people in St. Andrews, as I drove up, a lot of people in St. Patrick's and in St. Mark's. I was in Guave. I haven't been to St. Mark's really, but I reached as far as Sates, and I saw and I see the devastation. So you experiencing a loss and finding it difficult to sleep is the reality of you and your body and your psyche dealing with the trauma. So thank you. If you want the number, please, or you want to talk with me, I will make myself available to talk with you. So thank you so much for sharing tonight.
Yes, indeed. And 440-7377. And I think we have a caller on the WhatsApp. Let me bring in the WhatsApp caller. Hello, good night.
Hello, good night.
Hi, good night.
Good night, Dr. Panchu. Thank you for accepting the call and being on the program. Dr. Panchu, what would you say to someone who did not experience Ivan, who did not experience Janet, Emily was just about 10 months after Ivan, and the person who was able to cope with Emily. But this is the first experience of a hurricane, hurricane category 4. Now, the person didn't have any structural damage to their property where the person is living. But seeing the photos from Carriacou, photos, videos from Carriacou, Petit Martinique, and the other Grenadines, it has an effect on that person, a very serious effect. Taking into consideration, we are only in the hurricane season. First hurricane of the season, a category 4, and we were told that the season would be above average. What advice do you have for the person or other persons who might be thinking the same or experiencing, having the same feelings as that person is having? Now, Dr. Panchu, I really don't know how to put it. I am speaking of myself, Dr. Panchu. The after effect of the hurricane, it's not doing me well at all. It's not doing me well at all. Every time I see the photos and the videos, I get emotional. And my biggest fear is the rest of the hurricane season. What should I expect? I don't know what advice you could give along that line.
All right. Thank you so very much, caller.
Yeah. My dear, let me say this here. What you are experiencing, and I want you to listen and write it down. It's called vicarious trauma, VICARIOUS, trauma. It is trauma that is as a result of you witnessing or experiencing the devastation, but not in your person. So you saw it on the news, you see the pictures, when 911 came during the destruction of the Twin Towers, there were many people who developed traumatic responses, even PTSD, when they saw pictures days and months after, the videos just came crashing down, reminding them that this distressing activity or event took the lives of 3,000 plus people. So what you are allowing to happen at this time is vicarious trauma through the observation of and the experience of other people and pictures and videos. And there is a strategy that is used. If you can tap into a counselor or a therapist who know about the way to work with people who suffer from vicarious trauma, then we can help you. As I said, unfortunately, I don't think Grenada has a plethora, a big word, which means a lot, of clinically trained people to deal with that kind of trauma. We have counselors and we have, mentors and advisors, etc. But we really do need, and I want to implore upon the government to look abroad, find Peace Corps workers who are clinically trained, even at the doctoral level, to come in and work with people, because trauma is a very specific branch of psychological wellness. And so you need people who are trained and who are experienced in delivering services that are trauma-based. We call it trauma-informed care, TIC. All right. So when someone is trained as a trauma-informed care professional, then they can really work with people like yourself who is suffering from vicarious trauma.
Doc, we do have a call online. I want to get the calls in.
Okay, let's get it in. Let's get it in. No problem. So caller, you can call me.
Caller, go right ahead. Call on the line.
Dr. Panchu, good night.
Good night.
Yes, welcome home. I am saying that is your home. I have spoken to you on several occasions, and I am happy to hear you right now in the time of distress of Grenada, Carriacou, and Pittimatnik, counseling and willing to assist people with the counseling and the mental issues. Congratulations, Dr. Panchu. I look up to you and I always admire you when you speak on programs like these. And I must say, Dr. Panchu, I've heard in recent, and I have friends in Carriacou and Union Island and Beckway and so forth. A lot of friends. And Dr. Panchu, they are expressing some serious concern. I don't know what advice you can give to them, but I am saying to you what they expressed to me. That's why I called you tonight. When I heard that you were on the program, I feel pleased. They are saying that some of of the people in Carriacou and Pittimatnik, some of the people are not receiving the kind of attendance, the kind of help that they need. Some, it appears to them that they are politicking, and people in the time of distress. I want to recall Ivan. I didn't see Janet. I born after Janet, long after Janet. But I experienced Ivan and the kind of facilities that the government of the day provided for people. Whether you're NNP, GNP, NDC, MBPM, ULP, whatsoever political organization, the government of the day, when Ivan passed, they supplied people.
Caller, you'll have to speed it up a bit because remember, we think for time, so we can't take the long pauses. Yeah, you've got to speed it up.
They supply people and not political institutions. They supply individuals who needed the help. Dr. Panchu, I want you to address the situation in Carriacou and Pittimatnik. Please, I am asking you to tell them not to play politics with a hurricane that we have that devastates the Isle of Carriacou and Pittimatnik. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, caller.
Yeah. Well, caller, I agree with you. There are some sentiments that you have shared, and I don't know the experience, so I cannot speak to that part of it. Politicking or favoritism or biasness, I don't know. I want to represent, and even tonight on Sheldon's program, I want to represent a professional view, because I am staying on here because I have Grenada at heart. I don't have colors in my mind right now. There is a time for colors. There's a time for sides. And people may know, where I lean, but that's inconsequential. What is consequential for me at this time is that I'm a professional, and there are many other professionals who work in Grenada and for Grenada who bar colors, Sheldon, and they just want to help. And so If this is happening in Carriacou, if people feel that they are sidelined because of a color scheme, I want to discourage it because I am definitely I am anti-color at this time. I am just for Grenada. I want to stay that way because my people are hurting. I mean, when I see broken homes and I see children, and I know tonight that these children, they're probably, I brought some tops for a couple of families, and I know they're going to have them over the house. But, you know, that's what I'm impressed or I am compelled to address. And that's what I'm doing. Thank you, sir.
Now, Dr. Panchu, there's a question that came in a bit earlier from another listener, and they were asking. I'm just trying to pull up the question here. Your recommendations to both primary and secondary school children for the new school year 2024, whose families are not yet they've not yet reconstructed their homes, and so their possible relocations to school in Grenada. I'm speaking here particularly about the students in Carriacou and Petit Martinique, the secondary school students. What are your thoughts on temporarily relocating some of those students to Grenada? Or does it fall in line with the same situation regarding the younger ones, the infants and the preteens?
Yeah, well, to the question from that person who typed the question, it is true. Academic performance usually tend to be lowered when people are thrust in new environments. You have to now become acclimatized to new teachers, new peers, new format, new ways of teaching, etc., etc. So there is going to be a corresponding lull. It's just a lull. It doesn't necessarily mean that the child is going to forever continually perform badly. And for some, they may be so motivated children that they're going to just go out there and work really hard to impress the other people with whom they have now been forced or called upon to integrate with. So there is a possibility for our brothers, our little children, our school-age children in Carriacou, for us to see a lull in their academic performance. But given a couple months, children are so resilient, and there is what we call brain plasticity. The brain is able to absorb and to embrace new opportunities. They will do well. So I'm not fearful for them. It will only become a fearful situation for them, Sheldon, if they are not treated fairly, if they are not allowed to see their parents, they are not allowed to talk to people who are familiar and who can mentor them. But given other right and warm conditions, their academic performance may suffer a little, but in the long run, it will pick up and be okay. So the research supports that really. And so that's what I have to say about it. Yeah.
My next question to you, and I know we're quickly running out of time, Doc. We've actually only got 7 minutes. Time flies when you're having fun. We only got 7 minutes remaining. My next question to you is regarding the workers, the volunteers who are leaving Grenada and they're going up. The NADMA, the staff at NADMA. Well, I say staff loosely because they're volunteers. With NADMA, even the people who come over with Samaritan Spurs and all of these other agencies who are heading into Carriacou. How do we protect their mental health? Because I mean, even myself just going and seeing it again, I started remembering what we went through in Ivan. The feeling of hopelessness you had when the hurricane was at its height, just before the eye hit, and you recognize that but with all this thing, the wind passing like a train outside, and you're seeing trees, animals, houses exploding, and you can't do nothing. It brought a bit of that back. How do we deal with the workers? They're coming back down. Some of them don't even realize they're coming back traumatized. But they were not there for the hurricane. And additional to that, how do we deal with the Grenadian diaspora, the family members who are out there, who are listening to this program in their thousands tonight, who are out there, and they are also being traumatized by what they're seeing. They know Carriacou one way. And they know now that they will never see Carriacou that way again. From Paradise Beach all the way to the hospital. They would never see Carriacou that way again. How do we deal with these people?
Sheldon, this alone is an entire hour discussion that we could save for some other time. But let me address the two things that you asked. One, there is no question that the landscape is going to be different, and it is traumatic. Let me also remind you that I was listening to Samaritan Purse people, and one of the gentlemen said that he was a retired pastor and he was coming as the chaplain for the group. So that is to show you, Sheldon, that they thought well about vicarious trauma. They thought well about burnt out, because all of the helpers, and I want NADMA to know that too, all of the volunteers, 100 went up to Carriacou, and let me tell you something, you could be as hard as you want to be, but when you see homelessness and you see hopelessness in the eyes and desperation in the eyes of your fellow citizen, it is going to touch you, and when it does, you are going to go home drained. And when you do go home drained, maybe 2-3 nights of the week or for an entire week, then you're going to you are going to really need some debriefing. We call that in psychological terms debriefing. So I'm hoping that NADBA provides, in the 100 that went up, maybe 1 or 2 psychologists or people with experience being able to debrief with the staff. But it is really important. The people in the diaspora, I pray for you. When you come back home, Carriacou, Grenada, PD Martinique is going to be a different place. And then you are probably going to need a little help to reacclimatize to the structures that you're going to see. Some of the homes that you sent your money to build, they're not going to be in the picture, those pictures that they sent you 10 years ago, 5 years ago of your home being finished. Well, when you come back, it's going to be a different picture that they're going to send you. And that alone, Sheldon, is a form of loss, because you have grown attached to a place, and when you return, it is no longer there. So we have to be mindful of all of that. Sheldon, it's a pleasure always to be able to talk with you. Yes,
I think this should have been a 2-part program, you know.
always. But we can do that again, because I'll be here maybe all of next week again. So we can select a night, Sheldon, where we can do at least an hour, maybe, you know, but if needs be, we can do that again. Thank you so much.
Let me just say one thing before you go, and I want to commend you on that one again. The importance you have placed on creating the policies to guide the process. We've stated what the problems are. We've stated some of the ways of addressing them. But it's all for naught if the policies are not put in place by the policymakers to address the situation. For instance, you're sending NADMA, you have 100 people going up. They shouldn't be there for more than a week at a time or 2 weeks, and then they're rotated, because there's going to be burnout. So all those sort of things, they're putting those policies in place. So I want to commend you for that. And again, commend you for always being here for us.
Well, thank you, Sheldon. I think that's part of the duty of being a Grenadian. I think about home all the time. And life moves on, and so do people. But I thank you for the opportunity to share with our listening audience. And I know many are listening, and many are going to call me. I've started to receive a lot of messages on my phone already. So thank you again. God bless you, and God bless Grenada. This is a good time for God's blessing.
Indeed. Thank you so very much, Dr. Panchu. Folks, we have been speaking there with Dr. Panchu. Yes, I like to call him our resident psychologist. Clinical psychologist, not just psychologist. He's our resident clinical psychologist. So, you know, when different things happen, we tend to call on him. And we thought that this is an important time. And you recognize that even before having this discussion, that Dr. Panchu has already been out in the communities, already been out there, getting the work done, starting the process, and this is something that he will be continuing over the next 2 weeks or so that he's here, going up to Carriacou. And so we'd like to thank him once again for being here with us. Folks, it's important. Mental health is very important. You heard Dr. Panchu when he spoke of the fact that the young ones, it may not manifest now, but when they get to the 8, the 9, the 10, the 11, the 12, it might manifest itself at that time. So that we have to pay attention to the young ones. Also pay attention to the fact that the anxiety, both in Carriacou and here, continues, especially when you hear the news that there can possibly be just as strong or even worse hurricanes coming our way because of the climatic conditions that presently exist, which in itself creates some anxiety among people. I recognize for at least the first 10 years after Ivan, and even up to now, some people, by the time they hear hurry, they don't even want to hear the cane part of it, they start to panic. Some people, the moment they realize some high breeze pass or a lot of heavy rains and some may start to flood, and so they begin to panic. Yeah, so there's still that leftover from Ivan, much less for the hurricane season that we're in right now, which is why we say continue to be prepared. Make sure that you have your family plan. Make sure that you have your plan where you will be in case a hurricane is coming, what you need to have in case a hurricane is coming. Look at what has happened in Carriacou as a message to all of us to be prepared. Yeah, do whatever work we need to do, secure what we need to secure now, just in case something comes up in the near future. We could be here now, and by this time next week, we could be facing a next one. So we need to be prepared. And on the mental level, that may help us a bit to know that, hey, it's coming. We know it's coming, but we are prepared. Folks, that's all the time we have for Talking Points tonight. It's been wonderful being here with you. And in whatever you say and do it safe and secure. I want to be speaking to and with you all, and definitely not about you. My name is Sheldon Scott. I am out until tomorrow night. Talking Points is out.
Grenada, may God bless you. Grenada, may God bless you. The gem of the Caribbean, struck by Hurricane Ivan. The spices blew in the wind and the people all started to scream. The force of the hurricane has wrought havoc and caused great pain, but we are proud to say that we are on the rise again. Because our people are strong, it didn't take us too long to start to rebuild our land. The spice leaves, the spice leaves, the spice leaves, the spice. Yes, we're building better than before, and to your tourists we offering more. Oh yes, the spice leaves, the spice leaves, the spice leaves. The speed of the recovery have boosted the industry. Tourists who visit the land are amazed at the things they see. With a better infrastructure, we're building for the future. A nation rising with pride, and we know you'll be satisfied. And now the pleasure is ours to invite you to our shores. You will never regret for sure. The spice leaves, the spice leaves, the spice leaves, the spice. Yes, we're building stronger and stronger. It all goes well for the future. Oh yes, the spice leaves. Yes, we're building better than before, and to your tourists we offering more. Oh yes, the spice leaves. The gem of the Caribbean, struck by Hurricane Ivan. The spices blew in the wind and the people all started to scream. The force of the hurricane has wrought havoc and caused great pain, but we are proud to say that we are on the rise again. Because our people are strong.